Okay,
Can you hear me?
we sure can, Supervisor.
All I got is a blank page that says the meeting will begin shortly regards Chief Clerk of the Board.
Wow. Well, we can see you bright and clear.
I can see you,
There we
Tom.
go. There's just a 5-second delay. Just one moment.
Oh, because I don't see you guys. I don't know what else. I hate to punch anything because every time I do, I lose it.
Oh,
I know. How's LA, Brett?
Oh, not there yet.
Oh,
the Super Bowl's not for another like 12 days, Brett. Anybody tell you that?
After last Sunday, I don't even know if the Super Bowl is happening. So bummed out.
both of my teams won, so I'm happier than hell.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, you're a Bengals fan, Tom?
I am just anybody to beat Kansas City.
Oh, yeah. Anything that can beat the Raiders, right? Or,
Anybody but Raiders piss me off.
So, Mr. Chairman, did you want to just make kind of an announcement in terms of
What's going on? Yeah.
what's going on here? And we'll go into closed session. Okay, and then I'll continue. Anyway.
I'll just say that we're opening and I'm happy everybody's here. I'm not taking any chances to catch anything. And then I'm turning it over to Rob while I'll be on Zoom to watch you, to participate. Does
Excellent.
that sound okay?
That's perfect. Very good.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to welcome everybody here today. This is the closed session portion of the regular meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, February 1st, 2022. And so the first action is to request or to ask, are there any additions to the agenda?
Yes, Chairman, there is one addition for the board's consideration that came to the attention of the county after the agenda was posted, and there is need to take immediate action. I'd like to present to the board the review and request ratification and approval of a document that came before you in December of 2021. I'll explain a little bit more in detail with regards to the exhibits, but we'd like to bring a complete packet to you. There are documents here for members of the public that like one. It would be the agreement between the County of Madera and Almine Enterprises, Inc. for tree mortality operations management services.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any questions of members of the Board of Supervisors? Are there any questions from the members of the public regarding this item?
Move we take up this item and find that the need arose after the posting of the.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes,
Vote passes 5-0.
very good, thank you. And Council, I'm going to ask you, does that vote count also as a roll call? Oh, okay,
Oh, a roll call?
right. In terms of attendance, I was probably should have started the meeting with a roll call, but
That
No.
sounds like a good idea.
okay. Why don't we go ahead and then just do an official roll call for attendance as well?
Supervisor Frazier?
Here.
Supervisor Rogers?
Here.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Here.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Here.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Rob, we'll give you some leeway since both the chairman and vice chairman are not there and you're still taking responsibility.
Very good. I appreciate the grace. Thank you. All right. So the next item would be reading into the record our closed session item.
Thank you, Chairman. There's one item for your closed session under Government Code Section 54957.6. That's conference with your labor negotiators. Your agency designated representatives are Director Gomez and Mrs. Carter. The employee organization are all units, along with unrepresented positions of Animal Services Director, Assistant Sheriff, Corrections Director, and Undersheriff. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that have any questions regarding this closed session item? Hearing and seeing none, we will move into closed session. We'll be talking soon. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to a regular meeting of the Madera County Board of Supervisors. The first thing that we will do is call the roll. Make sure everybody, we have a couple of supervisors that are remote, so we want to make sure that they can hear and we can hear them.
Supervisor Frazier, Supervisor Frazier,
Come on, screen.
Here.
Supervisor Rogers,
Here.
Supervisor Wheeler,
I believe he stepped away.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Here.
Chairman Poitras,
Yes.
Here he
There's-
is.
Supervisor Wheeler, are you present?
Yes, here. Sorry.
All right. Mr. Chairman, would you like to go ahead and just kind of make a short announcement in regards to why I'm here and you're not?
Yes. I'm chairman this year, and Brett's pro tem, and we're both not taking any chances of getting COVID. So we both decided to do it by Zoom and online or whatever they call it. And so I'm going to hand over. So it's so hard to try to run a meeting online like this. I just asked Rob Poitras, supervisor, if he would run the meeting from down at the boardroom. So I appreciate that, Rob, you doing this for us, and I'll just join in as needed.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, are there any reportable actions out of closed session?
Chairman, there are no reportable actions from your closed session.
Very good. Thank you. Let's go ahead and move into the open and close in the meeting in memory of, and I'd like to start out, I'd like to remember Fred Nix. Fred was 75 years old. He was a 1964 graduate of Madera High School. He was married to my good friend Tammy Jo Nix. Tammy was a 73 graduate of Madera High School. I was 74, so she was the upperclassman. Fred started actually his career with Madera County. He started with the road department, and then he worked for the Madera Irrigation District, and then he ended his career with Madera County. So he started and ended his career. He was with our resource management department. So I just like to remember Tammy Jo and her family. Anybody else?
I have that too, Rob.
Yes.
Yeah, I ditto on Fred Nix. He was working for the county when I first got elected back in 2007. I got elected in 6, but I started 2007. I always thought he was a great guy, and Tammy is just about as good as they come. So I agree with you there. But the other one has really hit me hard this weekend. I had no idea she passed away in December the 22nd, Lou Ann Silkwood. That's Frank Bigelow's aunt, and she was the head of the Ponderosa Telephone ever since her husband and brother both passed away years ago. And she done one heck of a job, and she was a friend to everybody. She, I mean, I don't know how many kids she did it with, but all my kids, she sent them cards every event, birthdays, Easter, Christmas, whatever it might be, and she always put a dollar bill in it. And my daughter Amanda, she thought that was one of the biggest things in the whole world, getting that dollar. she just waited for that card for any kind of event that was going on. And she always she'd get $10 or so, then she'd run over and put it in her savings account we had started for years ago. But she donated land for the Minarets High School. She was a big part of the high school, and her daughter Christy is a teacher there. And I know as soon as we started building that school, that site, when I was on the school board, that was one of the first people we wanted to hire was her daughter. She was teaching down at Central High School, and she's still teaching there. And she's third generation of the Bigelow family. Her great grandparents started they had a ranch. They mainly ran sheep in those days, but then they went to cattle. And then Mrs. Bigelow back then wanted to communicate with her. I think it was a family member or a good friend, so she had her husband hang a line so they could talk to each other. And then that started the Ponderosa Telephone Company. And it's grown. When she was running it, it really grew. She has different facilities in different states and all over California. So great lady, great friend, and I was shocked to see that she had passed away. I think she was 93, I believe. Born in 1930, so 92.
She's a really nice lady.
Anyway, great lady. Yeah.
Very
You
good.
probably knew her, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I had several dinners with her. Great lady.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other individuals at this time? If not, let's go ahead and go to the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. And we have Pastor John Purcell from Believers Church who's going to deliver the invocation, and I'm going to ask Nick Salinas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody stand, please?
Thank you, Supervisor. Let's pray together. Father, we come before you this morning with thanksgiving for who you are, for your existence and your eternalness in our lives. As we've heard the passing of two people that affected our community in a very positive way for many years. And as this one lady was really a pioneer in so many areas, we thank you for them. We thank you for their memory and their example to those of us that are left behind. We pray for their families this morning. We ask you to just surround their families with that comfort and that care that you are always there for us and with us in these times. And so, Lord, we thank you for this meeting today. We humble ourselves before you. We realize that the ways of man many times are filled with good intentions, that it's only with your inspiration, your direction, your mercy, and your grace that we're able to do what you've called each one of us to do. Thank you for the board this morning, those that are present and those that are at a remote location. We ask you to empower them and give them what they need to do what they need to do and decide what they need to decide. We pray for every person that will speak this morning and for their function within the county and all the different things that you've called them to be and do. We humble ourselves under your mighty hand, and we ask you to exalt us that we might serve the people of this county and be a blessing to them in those ways you've called us to be. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pastor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to public comment. As a reminder, the first 15 minutes of each regular session are set aside for members of the public to address the board on any matter under the jurisdiction of the board but not appearing on the agenda. The board will not take action on any items presented under public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board is asked to print their name clearly on the speaker sheet at the podium and state their name and county of residence for the record. So let's go ahead and start our public comment with folks that are here physically, and then we'll check on the web to see if there's anybody. So, okay. How about,
I've got
oh, Supervisor, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I should have put my name up on the screen. I want to recognize Chris Hunt from the Road Department for District 2 Supervisors of Roads. He's retiring today, and I want to just thank him for his 32 years of service. The employees did a luncheon for him yesterday. Everything from rattlesnake to wild pig and all kinds of good meat. Incredible. Just a really great time. And you could see the appreciation that the employees had for Chris and his leadership through the years. He shed a little tear there while he was talking about his experience in the county. And when you spend that much time in something in your life, it's worth noting. And we certainly appreciate the job he's done in District 2. He's made my job easier, and he's served the people of District 2 very well. Thank you, Chris Hunt, for your years of service.
All right, very good. Thank you. Mr. Barney.
Mr. Chairman, I see Chief Watson's here, and I was wondering if he could give us a quick public comment to bring us up to date on last night's traffic collision that involved one of our pieces of fire equipment. Thank you.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Engine 9 from Rolling Hills was involved in a motor vehicle accident last night. It was returning from PCF training being held at Station 19. As they were on their way back to the fire station, a vehicle ran a stop sign, hit them right in the passenger door front tire area. It hit so hard it broke the leaf shackles away from the frame. The engineer was unable to steer the vehicle. It went off the roadway, rolled onto the driver's side, and it also cracked the bell housing on the transmission. The impact was so severe. The captain was seat belted, suspended in the air. He released his seat belt, landed on the engineer, dislocated his shoulder. The engineer was able to kick the windshield out. He immediately got out of the vehicle. There was a sheriff's deputy there with them and one of our training captains, and they were trying to access the patient. So the engineer that was involved in the vehicle accident grabbed the jaws of life off the fire engine that was involved in the accident and proceeded to cut the patient out of the car and then climbed back on top of the fire engine to get the trauma bag to start rendering aid with the sheriff's office. So both people were released from the hospital last night, both employees. Unknown status on the person that ran the stop sign.
What intersection was it? Where this
It was
occurred?
on Road 36 and Avenue 13.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Any question? Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Chief.
No, just prayers for all that were involved, and thank you, Chief Watson, for the update on it last night. And pretty scary scene, so
Yeah.
glad that our firefighters are in better shape today, but I see Sally behind you, and I know she'll be there for us when all this comes to a head somewhere else. So.
Thank you, Supervisor Wheeler, and I'll pass the word on to both employees. They're both home and the rancho is resting well, so thank you.
It's Frazier.
They look alike. You guys look alike. All right, very good. Thank you.
Good morning, Sally Moreno. I wasn't going to speak, but since the collision came up, I will mention I've been in contact with the Highway Patrol. There was a call out prior to the collision about a vehicle matching the description of the vehicle that hit our fire truck as a BOL for a possible drunk driver. So it is suspected that alcohol or drugs played a part in this collision. And should the driver of that vehicle survive, when we receive this investigation, we'll be prepared to prosecute it.
Very good. Thank you. If there is no other public comment, let's go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar a supervisor would like to have pulled for further comment, elaboration, explanation? Very good. Are there any members of the public that have an item they'd like to have discussed or comment on?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just wanted to call out an item on this in particular, item 6D, and just to note that we've been waiting with anticipation of this item, and really excited to see this item go forward. That's the firehouse number 3 for our district, and a lot of people are waiting for this, so we're really excited to see this. Public safety, still our number one goal and priority as a county. County's not safe to live in. It doesn't matter what other amenities you have. We intend to keep Madera County safe. Thank you.
You know, it's a great thing, and we'll talk about it more when we get there. Thank you. Okay, so 6A.
Oh, you know what? I don't know why I thought I put that on the consent calendar. I'm sorry.
Hey, you know, it's always good to comment on good things.
Yeah.
So, very good. All right. Well, let's go ahead and go to 6A. This is a discussion and direction on the name of the Hall of Justice building.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the board requested this item be placed on the agenda. Staff is here to answer financial and other questions that you may have. We also have a few potential ideas regarding alternative names should the board decide that the current Hall of Justice name is not the direction they want to go. So we don't plan on doing a presentation at this point. We plan on entertaining your questions and offering the information that we have available for you.
Very good.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, I guess you are chairman right now, right? I brought this on, so you want me to start off?
Sure.
Thank you. Ever since I've heard them say that, I didn't know they were really going forward with that name, because I never really liked it, because I just don't think, I think justice takes place in our courts, not the DA and probation. They enforce everything, justice, I guess. And I just really like Madera County DA and Madera County Probation Office, or combine them, just like our Madera County Sheriff, Madera County Fire, Madera County Health Department, you just on and on. And Hall of Justice, I don't know, it just don't ring a bell for me. And I had Jay look at some of the stuff, and he found 3 other counties that do use that, San Joaquin, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And I don't, that's fine what they do. We're not those cities. And I don't know, I think it sounds stronger and better, Madera County DA and Madera County Probation, or Madera County DA and Probation offices. And I'd like to hear from Sally what her take is on it. I've been going to call her, and I apologize, Sally, for not calling you before, but I would like to hear your take. And that's my take on it, so.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, I just have to respectfully disagree. I think that justice begins with law enforcement, and it begins with the sword in the hands of our. And I say the sword, I mean justice always has the sword, and it has the balances. So there are 2 parts to justice, and it begins with our law enforcement officers, continues as we go through the DA, and it even parses out through probation. So when you look at Lady Justice, she says it very clearly, and Lady Justice could be a nice figure in the forefront of the Hall of Justice, in my opinion. That would be a nice, I don't know if that's planned, but that would be a really great icon, something recognizable and something definitely endemic of what you do as a DA, as a probation officer, as a sheriff, a deputy and a sheriff. all of those, and even corrections. Corrections not excluded from that. It's all part of justice. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
David, I think that's the point that Tom is trying to make, is that justice is in all of that. And I mean, even so much as the public defender as well. So I think the point he's making is that to only house two parts of justice in a hall of justice is what I think he has a problem with. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly. I mean, the sheriff, if you want to talk about justice, we could name the sheriff of Madera County Hall of Justice. That's where it all starts, way before the DA and way before probation.
Oh, I understand
Probation
what
is
you're
that,
saying now.
of course. So,
I get what you're saying now. Thank you, Tom, for clarifying that.
yeah, no problem, buddy. Hey.
Okay, very good. Any other comments?
Well, yeah, this is Amber Mojica from General Services. I'm here with Jorge Mendoza, Capital Projects Manager. Yeah, initially it was going to house more than just the DA and probation. It was going to, Madera Superior Court was supposed to be in there because this was established back in 1999. However, you know, as the time went on, Madera Superior Court, as you know, got their own building. So now we still need a place for the DA and probation. So it's just the name kind of just stayed the same. But if there are any name changes that want to be implemented, we have to do it by March 11th because then construction and costs and everything increases. So, yeah.
Can I ask a
I think
question?
Sally's Jorge Mendoza. So if the name should be changed, there is potential cost implications, especially if we go with the full name, District Attorney's Office and Adult Probation or Probation Department. There would be potential cost implications and schedule implications. As you know, if you're driven by the building, it's currently in construction. We're in the framing stages. The letters would need additional supports to be installed. So just want to point that out, whatever the name is.
Do we know what those costs would be?
Each letter, it's approximately $350. Then it's a big, depending on how much, what name we end up with. There's a name on the building on both sides facing north and south, as well as a monument sign that's floor mounted.
But potentially thousands.
Correct.
Plus there could be a change order remuneration as well.
Yeah, if we don't come to an agreement on what the name would be, then that particular section of the framing would have to be kind of held off until to allow other activities to continue.
Right. Well, this is the last thing that goes up anyway. So what the cost, you know, after spending $20 million on this thing, I don't think a couple $1,000s is going to make that big of a deal when you're talking $20 million on the whole building. So
Yeah, I agree.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yeah, just Jorge, what's the difference? So if it's not the Hall of Justice and it's Madera County DA, do you have an estimated?
No, kind of. I was waiting to see what was going to come out of this meeting to kind of get that price estimate, right? If it's going to be just Madera County District Attorney's Office, or then I would have to just do a kind of a count and then make sure that we put in that request to the contractor in time to get the framing in.
Okay. And then Jay and Regina, just for the record, do we have a current policy on naming of any county buildings?
You have a current policy on naming, not just buildings, but for example, the room you just named at the Oakhurst Library, and I don't have that with me here today. It's a fairly short policy in terms of how those get selected and who has authority to do that. If for some reason the board wants to continue this item, I can run upstairs and grab it and make copies for everybody if you would prefer.
That could be a follow-up item, I guess. Yeah. Thank you. So let's go ahead and open it up to the public and public comment regarding this item.
Well, I feel like Mr. Wheeler asked for my comments, so I'd like to respond. First of all, I know, I'm sorry too that we didn't have an opportunity to have a conversation before this. I know you have my phone and you've called me before, and I wish we had that opportunity. I also know you've You've been here on the Board of Supervisors now for 15 years, and this project has been going on for over 20 years. And during that whole time, it's been called the Hall of Justice. It's interesting to me, too, and I didn't know exactly where you were going to go, Supervisor Wheeler, but that we're not talking about what really happened, and that is that retired Judge Chuck Wieland is offended by the use of the term justice for the District Attorney's Office, and you agree with him, or you've listened to that, and that's reasonable. We can absolutely have this conversation. It's important. I just think we should call it what it is, which is a conversation started by a retired judge and a citizen in Madera County, and that's a reasonable conversation to have. So the first thing I'd like to do is, I had a very emotional response when I first saw this, and it took me a moment to calm myself down. I think you guys have all seen me get emotional. To calm myself down and ask myself, why am I having this response? And I'm going to talk a little bit about me, but then I'm going to bring it back to what we do. I was proud and pleased and honored to think that I was going to get to work in a building that called me every day to do justice. My life has been guided by a search for justice, protecting the weak and keeping people safe and doing justice in my community. From my start in the military, through law enforcement, as an actual prosecutor, and here, justice has been the guiding force for me. And it's not just me. It's a guiding force for all of the employees of the District Attorney's Office, as well as the Probation Department, which is in fact an arm of the court. So I'm going to read a little something. I'm not going to go on too long, but I just because the issue is, do district attorneys do justice? I want to read from the United States Supreme Court, an opinion called Berger versus United States, venerable law from 1935, talking about the job of the prosecutor. The prosecution is the representative not of any ordinary party to a controversy, but of a sovereignty whose obligation to govern impartially is as compelling as its obligation to govern at all, and whose interest in a criminal proceeding is not that it shall win a case, but that justice shall be done. When I or one of my attorneys appears in court and says, Sally Moreno for the people, those people necessarily include everybody in that courtroom, every citizen of Madera, the victim of the crime, and importantly, the defendant. In every case, we are obligated to seek justice for every person involved. And I know that Supervisor Frazier, you mentioned the public defender, and let me start by saying I have the utmost defense and respect for our public defender. They do an absolutely necessary, vital, and critical job, and the older I get, the more I learn about that job, the more deep my understanding and respect goes for the men and women who do that job. But their job is not justice. Their job is to advocate for their client, to get the best deal for their client, the best outcome for one person. And that's not justice. They don't have the obligation that the prosecutor has, which is justice. And they don't have the obligation that the probation department has as an arm of the court, which is justice. Absolutely. We have what we call in Madera County justice partners, right? And the sheriff is a big justice partner. Other law enforcement agencies that aren't county agencies are our justice partners. The probation department is our justice partner, and the courts are our justice partner. When we look at naming conventions in this county, generally we call a building by the name of the department it houses, unless there's more than one. And I comment on the building that we have right here. This building is not called the Assessor's Department, the Office of the Supervisors, the Office of the CAO, the Office of the Clerk of the Court. It's called the Government Center. And that's appropriate because it is the center for government functions. And in Madera County, we could call that the Hall of Justice, or if the court wants to change it, or if the court, there you go. If the board wants to change it, we could call it the Justice Center. But in any event, what we do in that building is justice. And whatever this board decides. If you decide to keep the name Hall of Justice, I will remain pleased, proud, inspired, and called to do justice every day when I go to work in that building. If you call it the Justice Center, I will feel the same way. And if you call it the Madera County Office of the District Attorney and the Madera County Probation Department, which is a lot of letters, I will also remain the person that I am and come to work pleased and proud to do justice every day. And I will continue, as I started when I got here, informing the public that what we do in the Office of the District Attorney is justice. And I just want to show you, in case you thought this was some recent invention from my mind, we have a team, the District Attorney's Office, and we're participating in the Support Blue Run. And so to show our support for law enforcement, we got our own team shirts. And on the front there, it says Madera County DA Office. And on the back, we put a logo, which is that blue cross, and it says Support the Blue. And then it has our logo. And if you can see that, Supervisor Wheeler and Supervisor Frazier at the bottom, we do justice. It's what we do every day. And we're proud to do it. Regardless of what you name this building, we'll continue to do it. I like Hall of Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Supervisor Rogers.
Well, I'll let Chris go ahead and talk, and then I'll
Oh, okay.
chime in.
Sorry, didn't want to crash in, but I do want to say a few words. And Sally, thank you so much for your comments. I think they're
Excellent.
heartfelt and
Yeah.
to the point. As you know, and just to remind you, probation, and specifically my position, I'm also a servant of the court as well as the county. I'm appointed by the court. And I do want to remind the court that, you know, as a part of or a branch or an arm of the court, that we do serve the court in our course of work. Secondly, I do want to emphasize that the word justice is not only just a word, but it's, you know, if you define it in looking at Webster's or any dictionary, it's fair and equitable treatment of folks. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to treating criminals unjust. We want to make sure that we treat our folks that we serve in a just, fair, equitable way. And I do want to urge you, when you do consider the name change, that you consider the word justice in that name of the building, because I think it's highly important. It is also a core value of probation, and I would probably bet that it's probably a core value of any law enforcement or DA's office as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Supervisor Rogers.
Yes, I move that we retain.
Hey, I ain't done talking yet.
Yeah, and I'd like to say something too, before
Me too.
any motion.
Okay, you know what we'll do? Supervisor Rogers, he can make a motion, but then that doesn't close public comment or any discussion. So let's go ahead and go to Supervisor Rogers. We'll go to Supervisor Wheeler and then Supervisor Frazier. And thank you guys for standing, because it's hard to kind of, so thank you for speaking up. Appreciate it. All right, Supervisor.
Yeah, I move that we retain the title to the building, the Hall of Justice.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Wheeler.
Thank you. Well, we can't discuss it unless somebody seconds it. That's the rule of orders.
Okay. Well, nobody's seconded at this point.
So it drops.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, well, first of all, thank you, Sally. And I do apologize for not calling you. It's been a rough couple of weeks for me, so it's one of those things. But and I respect all that you do. You know that. I have brought it up though in the past, even when Dave Lynn was here, when they said something about the Hall of Justice. I said, "Yeah, Dave, you probably want to call it the Dave Lynn DA office." And I have brought it up in other conversation. In the front of your shirt actually says the same thing what we were talking about, Department of the District Attorney. So, and I still say if we use justice, we should do it like all of you have said, that even the sheriff is where justice starts. That's where the justice starts, not the other three places. And so I still think that just to be consistent with all of our other departments, that we call it Madera County District Attorney and Department of Probation, Madera County Department of Probation. Letters, hey, we can have 1,000 letters, don't make any difference. As far as I'm concerned, it's got to be what the public knows what it is. When they see Department Hall of Justice, how many people do you know, if you went out and asked right now, would know what that was? It sure in heck don't say nothing about DA, and it sure don't say nothing about probation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor. Supervisor Frazier.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for everybody that spoke today. So I've been thinking about this too, and when the history of how it was all going to be together, and then the state said that they were going to build the courthouse instead of us, instead of the county. But I was thinking if just to have that as like the entire Justice campus, you know, and naming it like the Hall of Justice South, with the courts being like the Hall of Justice North, and if we can get the state to rename that, or but so then it's kind of one entirety of the justice process and how it all fits together, because I do believe that that is all part of it. And when I did say the public defender, you know, it is justice when you know, they're not every time is the person guilty, right? That's all part of the balance of justice and making sure that justice is done for the community. And that's the only reason I had even, you know, brought that as part of it as well. But I believe in the justice system, and recognize just how important that is, part that probation and district attorney's office plays in that. But I would be fine like the Hall of Justice South.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Supervisor.
Mr. Chairman, if nobody else is speaking, I got one more item.
Okay, Jorge has a comment, and then Supervisor, go ahead and.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify. So the ground-mounted monument sign does, in fact, at the intersection of G Street and 7th, does have the full name of the department. So it says District Attorney's Office and Probation Department. The building name on the south and north side is what says Madera County Hall of Justice currently. And because of the nature of the size, I think right now we're currently at 38 feet long. That's why we didn't put the actual full name on the building. If we choose to do that, I just did a quick takeoff. Just for the letters, it's $17,500, not considering the additional backing that we would need or the additional lighting to light it up at night.
So you're looking at somewhere over 20 then.
Most likely probably into the 40,000. Once you include the lighting and the additional support.
$40,000.
So what does it cost right now?
If we go with just considering the letters for, you know, the full adult probation and district attorney's office.
The difference.
Yeah, 17,500. Plus the additional lighting that it will require to light up the additional signage and the additional support.
So over $40,000 you're saying.
I mean, I'll get a final cost, but I think that's going to be
in the $40,000 range.
Between 30 and 40.
Yeah, and a $20 million building that will educate the public of what it says, what Hall of Justice says, or what they mean when they try to find a DA office. So we could always put Hall of Justice on top and then put Madera County DA and Madera County Probation underneath it. But I don't care that either, but that would.
Supervisor, if I'm correct, Jorge, didn't you mention that there is a sign at the corner of what, 7th and
7th and G Street? There's a monument sign that has Madera County Hall of Justice, and then below it there's District Attorney's Office, and then below it adult probation.
Okay.
And then the address. So that's at the very intersection, kind of diagonal facing the 7th and G.
Okay, so Supervisor, it looks like that there is, at least on the monument sign, where it does indicate it's the District Attorney's Office as well as probation.
Yeah, and the extra cost, I would like to see that in writing and see what the bids are on that, because that really sounds ridiculous for those letters, so.
Okay, very good.
Can I
Before you,
speak again?
please, yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I think the consistency of the naming works. Like I said, the departments or the buildings here in the county that house more than one department are characterized by the nature of what they do. And the Madera County Government Center is an appropriate name, even though the Department of Social Services isn't here, even though the Health Department isn't here, even though the Food and Ag Department isn't here. That doesn't mean that it's not appropriate. So in terms of calling the building either the Hall of Justice or the Madera County Justice Center, you don't have to have all of the parties that do that thing. And I would easily and candidly acknowledge that there are other partners that do justice. And part of what we've done is make sure in that building we have a meeting space for all of our justice partners. I think we'll have one of the largest conference rooms in the county where we do often meet with all of our justice partners. And so they will be, in the building for meetings and we'll make use of the facilities. The other thing I want to mention, and since it was brought up, I was before this board some time ago, maybe in the middle of 2019, talking about the fact that I don't do buildings. I haven't done buildings. And I'll tell you, the last few years have been quite an education in buildings. And looking at this building, there are, in fact, some significant issues, one of which is there's no ballistic glazing and there's no defensive landscaping in our building. So when we talk about spending, I don't know, somewhere between $17,000 and $25,000, if we have that to spend on this building, I would ask this board that you spend that money making your Madera County employees safe in our building. At this point, even our public areas where the public comes into our building has no ballistic glazing, no protection. And there's no, as you look, when you come and go out of this building, you see you have these balusters to protect from people driving into your building. None of that has been done at the Hall of Justice. And we can talk about why that happened. We can, just like we can talk about why this name has been on this building for 20 years and we're just addressing it now. But the bottom line is if there's money to be spent on the building, I would really sincerely request that we fund it and spend it on making our Madera County employees more safe. Like I said before, what you name the building, every one of us, and I'm sure I speak for Chief Childers and his staff as well, we will come to work and do our best every day. We would be honored to work in a building that acknowledges that what we do every day is justice.
Very good. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I had my name up there twice.
I agree with that, Sally. Sorry.
Oh, Supervisor Rogers, in fact, he wants to talk so badly, he's on here twice. So then Supervisor Frazier.
No, I have another thought on this as well, that when you look at the building itself, the aesthetics that are going to be presented by all that wording is just, I think it's grotesque. The aesthetics it will just dominate any architectural features that would be on that building. The rule of thumb is to keep it very simple when you're putting titles on buildings, because you don't want that to be the dominant feature. You want it to be an accent. You want it to be the title, not the story. And it just strikes me that all of that wording is too aesthetically unappealing for that building. And anyway.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Supervisor Frazier.
Actually, hey, Sally, I love that idea of if we're going to spend $40,000 extra, I'd rather it be in ballistic glass. And then to Supervisor Wheeler's point of keeping consistency with our naming in the past, if we call it the Justice Center, that'll drop one letter. That'll save us another $350 towards some upgrades there. Is that something with Justice Center? I really like that because that's just like the government center.
I like that too.
Hall of Justice does sound a little bit like when I hear it, I kind of think of the Justice League, and I get kind of placed into a DC Comics, like up in like some crystal tower. But would Justice Center be a good and consistent with our naming. Just like to hear your thoughts on that. And then I know we can't talk about the 40,000, but I'd like to see that actually brought back for some of those improvements too, if it's in the budget. But Sally and
And I think the 40,000 was the total. Actually, I think it would be
yeah, that was if we were going to name it
a rough increase of
all the extra
23,000.
letters.
Actually, yeah, that was
Yeah, but then
rough,
with the
give or
lighting
take.
would end up, yeah.
Very good. Sally, and then Supervisor Gonzalez.
I'm very comfortable with Madera County Justice Center.
Okay.
Yes, Chris Childers, Chief Probation Officer, very comfortable. I think we had a few discussions about this as an alternative name, and I'm honored to have that name, Justice, in the name of the building any way, shape, or form, but I'd like it.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Oh, I really,
Me next after her.
I I didn't really have much thought on this item before it came. When I saw it, I said, okay, whatever. We'll figure it out. But my one concern was that folks were going to get confused with Madera Superior Court, Hall of Justice. I could see where there would be some confusion as to where to go. I do like the Justice Center. I know that not in addition to you work with victim services, and so I think that's a nice compromise at this point, and I'm ready to move forward. That'll be my motion.
I got to say something too.
Yes, Supervisor Wheeler. Well, okay.
I'm going to second the motion.
Brett,
And let me, you know what, first of all, we do have a motion on the floor, and Supervisor Gonzalez, maybe be a little more specific with your motion.
I moved that we move forward with the Justice Center as the name, and just make sure that we put district attorneys off. Could we do it in the cheap letters on the window?
Well, and it's, yeah.
I mean, the way we have it, employees only and public entrance. I don't know.
I'm sure that is.
I've got a label machine at Papa Murphy's that I can bring in.
And I second the motion.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Supervisor Wheeler. And then we'll
yeah,
go.
is that Madera County Justice Center, Letty?
Yeah.
Or to just say Justice
You
Center.
just said Justice Center.
What do
I
we
just want to
have
make
it
sure.
before?
It would
If-
be Madera County.
If the name
Justice
stays
Center.
Madera County Justice Center, there shouldn't be any, it's the same amount of letters, I believe. There wouldn't be any additional cost for lighting or it remains the same. But the full name is Madera County Justice Center.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Varney.
It'll actually be one less letter.
That was just the point of clarification I wanted to make.
Okay.
We'll put that money in the
350.
guards out in front, putting those big rocks and stuff like we did at our building so we can protect it. I didn't realize that we didn't have that in the original plans to make that safety there, because that is crazy. We don't have it. I mean, the courthouse has it. We have it. The Madera County Justice Center should have it also,
Well, a nice
no matter
bold.
what it costs.
So for clarification, Madam Clerk, I move that we move forward with the Madera County Justice Center as the naming of the district attorney and probation offices.
Okay, and we have a second.
I'll second the motion. Is it possible either to agree with the motion maker or amend the motion to have staff bring back the concept of safety? We could add that in, can't we?
Well, that's kind of a never-ending thing. We have looked at a number
Okay,
of
so we don't
issues
need that
related to
motion.
that,
They'll
but we
know to
will
bring
bring
it
it
back.
back.
That's just
to
a
the
direction to staff.
You want it in cursive?
I second the original motion.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me talk that through.
Any public comment?
Tom has a question.
Yes, Tom.
I said call for the question.
Okay, call for the question. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier,
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler,
Yes.
Chairman Poitras.
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Awesome.
Very good. Thank you.
Good.
And that's going to be our shortest item of the day. Everything else will be longer.
Thank you
No.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, let's move on to our public hearing. Public hearing started at 10:30, and the first item we have is item 7A. It's a hearing to consider adoption of a resolution approving financing pursuant to Section 147F of the Internal Revenue Code. regarding 4148 Town Center Boulevard, Madera.
Good morning, members of the board. Anthony Loza with the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office. The item we have before your board this morning is a public hearing related to a request for tax-exempt financing for the benefit of Camarena Health. Camarena Health is requesting that your board conduct a TEFRA hearing and adopt a resolution which is required by law to allow for the California Enterprise Development Authority, also known as CEDA, to issue the bonds on a tax-exempt basis. Your board previously conducted a TEFRA hearing and approved a resolution similar to today back in May of 2019, also for a similar Camarena project. So the federal law requires that a public hearing before the Board of Supervisors prior to any bond issuance by CEDA for projects under your county's jurisdiction. It's important to note that the obligations issued by CEDA are not an obligation of the county or any member of CEDA. The proceeds of this financing will be used to finance a portion of the construction costs of a new Camarena Wellness Center at the Tesoro Viejo Town Center and to refinance some outstanding debt related to Camarena's past projects in Madera County. So with that being said, we have Mr. Paulo Soares from Camarena Health to answer any questions that you may have.
Good morning, Board. Paulo Soares with Camarena Health, and happy to answer any questions. I'm not sure how much further information you would like on the project, but this is the project currently taking place at Tesoro Viejo. As was mentioned previously, this is a similar process as what we worked with you all for the project currently under development on Almond Avenue, where we also finance that project through a tax-exempt bond financing, and we leverage our nonprofit status to acquire the financing at a lower cost to our organization. So greatly appreciate your support.
To your organization so that you can provide more services to the residents of Madera.
Absolutely. It allows us to continue with projects and find areas of the community and the county that maybe have a lower access to care. And so we look forward to developing this project in the southeast corner of Madera County, where there's a great growth and want to try and match that with healthcare services.
Very good. Thank you.
I think while Paul is up there, I wanted to just say that, you know, one of the findings you have to make on a bond finance like this is serving the public good. And I would say that Camarena exceeds that. I mean, that's what they do. 50,000 per year patients?
We served 55,000 last year, yes.
55,000 last year. That's amazing. There's a Camarena almost in every little corner now of Madera County, and we need more. We're an underserved area, and this definitely is a project worthy of our support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty easy to show a public good when a third of the population is being served.
I think not only every corner of Madera County, I think every corner of Madera.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Access is not a problem for Camarena. That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, we appreciate the opportunity to serve the community, and as long as there's a need, we'll continue to try and fill that gap. So
excellent. Thank you. Are there any other comments from my colleagues? This is a public hearing. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this particular item, either here or in Webland? Anybody? All right, very good.
Move to approve this item, 7A.
We make the necessary findings and move to approve, right? Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier? Supervisor Frazier?
Sounds like he's trying to say something.
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank you.
Paulo, for what you do.
Very good.
Thank you, Anthony.
Let's move on to item 8A. This would be the presentation and update on Madera County groundwater sustainability agencies.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Stephanie and Agneson, Director of Water and Natural Resources, with Mike Linden, Deputy County Counsel. I have a short presentation that's a GSA update to share with you today.
Okay, thank you for that, Clerk of the Board. So here's what we'll cover today. We're going to talk through the status of the groundwater sustainability plans. We'll talk through rates and penalties in preparation for having a lengthier rates discussion next week. We'll talk about allocations and then meters as an alternative to evapotranspiration of applied water, or ETAW. So we have a status update. As of Friday in the Chowchilla Subbasin, we did receive a letter that deemed the GSP incomplete. So there are two options, well, three really. They can accept the plan, they can deem it incomplete, which is what we got, or inadequate, which means you're kicked almost immediately over to the state board. So we got the in-between option, which I think is okay. All of the other GSPs within the valley received the same option, incomplete. So we do have a scope in place to revise the GSP. We have 6 months to do that. So that's in Chowchilla. In the Delta Mendota Subbasin, that's our west side of Madera County. They received a similar letter deeming the 6 GSPs in the Delta Mendota incomplete and have 6 months to revise. And then in the Madera Subbasin, we will be notified later this year by October in terms of our status. But given the trend towards incomplete, that's what I would project. We are working with rate consultants on a couple of different rate issues. One of them is to take the money that was going to never irrigated acres and consider putting it within the irrigated acres to essentially repurpose more land and take it out of production sooner. We're looking at increasing the payment to irrigated acres to be taken out of production or repurposed. And then we're looking at a couple different rate options, which became more complicated as we got into it. I know the timing for this is as soon as possible, but it's more complicated than one would think. And Raftelis is going to walk us through some of that next week. In terms of penalties, I assume you've had some questions. I know I have, so I've provided the water code here. Basically, Water Code 10732 says if a person who extracts groundwater in excess of the amount that the person is authorized to extract under a rule, regulation, ordinance, or resolution adopted pursuant to Section 10725.2 shall be subjected to a civil penalty not to exceed $500 per acre foot extracted in excess of the allocation. So that is the basis for the penalty, is the $500 per acre foot over. That can be coupled with a fee imposed for the extraction, which is noted under number 2 there. So essentially, if someone goes into a penalty and takes out more water than he or she is authorized to, we have to get that water savings somewhere else. We have to pay someone else not to use water. And that is probably somewhere in the $400 to $500 per acre foot. So potentially you are looking at a penalty of $500 plus another $400 to $500. The penalty does have an additional piece of code, and we haven't seen any examples of people applying this in the valley so far. But a person who violates any rule, regulation, ordinance, or resolution adopted to pursuant to Section 10725.2 shall be liable for a civil penalty of $1,000 plus $100 per day. You can see the penalty code is not necessarily as straightforward as one would hope. The previous screen had a rate per acre foot. This has a rate per person plus a rate per day. So what we're trying to do is discern the best penalty tier, which reflects any additional costs the GSA would encumber. Briefly touching on allocations, we did a workshop for growers mid-month in January. we're updating the EraWatch portal, launching it hopefully today with some updates. We've enrolled everybody who was not enrolled. We had about 60 to 70% of folks enrolled voluntarily. We've enrolled the rest of the folks who have not enrolled. They'll have allocation reports that they can access in EraWatch each month. They'll also have the ability to tie a well to fields, so that will help them verify their own water use. We also mailed out reports last week, so people are getting them now, that showed their water use last year, their ET of applied water last year compared to an allocation. And then lastly, let's talk a little bit about meters. I know the direction from your board was to give people multiple options. So in 2021, we had a verification project where we attempted to reconcile meter data to the ETAW measured in EraWatch, and we found a lot of people didn't really want to share data, or they had older meters, or what I'm going to call a non-standard installation of the meter. So we've explored that a bit, but we're trying again this year with a 2022 verification. So what we wanted to see is how your actual metered water use matches up to satellite analysis, which is similar but not exactly the same. So we have a boots on the ground project planned. We're going to establish criteria for selecting people if they would like to share. They'll be able to collect data using an app on their smartphone, and then we'll analyze the results and present them back to you so that we can build confidence in satellite data as an alternative to meter data. Now, that said, some people will still want to use meter data, so the allocation your board adopted in August of last year had a process for people appealing their data. So this is the key parts based on Resolution 2021-113. They need flow meters installed. They need to be maintained per the manufacturer's specifications and certified by an engineer in the field within the last 2 years of the date of the appeal. They need to record the data monthly. All you need to do is take a photo on your phone of that data, and we'll have an app that you can upload it in a little bit. They need to make a map of where the meter is tied to, what area it's irrigating, and if they're bringing in any other water, perhaps they're purchasing it, they will need to measure that. And then we'll have a third party review that and determine if it's valid. The third party may be Fresno State. And we've had 2 discussions with them about their interest and ability to do that. So that's kind of it with our update. I'd be glad to answer any of your questions about GSP letters from DWR, meters, allocations, or anything else. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Stephanie from any of my colleagues?
Great job.
Stephanie?
Thank you.
Difficult job.
I just have a question. So we have great confidence that EraWatch is accurate and it's doing its job and it's again accurate and so there shouldn't be any issues.
Yes, and I think we need to build additional grower confidence in it as well. I would also say every farm is different, and sometimes people may be getting water in ways that are not able to be measured by the satellites. For example, if someone located a ranch next to a waterway, that person would get some subsurface flow, right? That is not groundwater, it's just water that is slightly under the surface. And so then the satellite measurement of evapotranspiration would give a different number than what they're pumping because they're benefiting from lateral seepage. So there are weird things like that involve some digging into, but in general, we see satellite measurement throughout the valley. It's also what the state's been using for 5 or 10 years. There's 2016 DWR Land IQ data that was the basis for a lot of GSP work. So it's pretty mainstream, but I do think we need to build grower confidence in it.
Very good. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, I think I've asked this before, but I don't want to presume that I have. There are periphery things that could happen on a field that are unrelated to your agriculture. You have habitat. There are things, like you said, there are ways that water gets into those circumstances without you pumping the water into those circumstances. And will that be taken into consideration when viewing the satellite imagery? You're going to show strong hot spots of vegetation and evapotranspiration in areas that are not even related to your farming operation, and that could interfere with your results.
So in terms of the ET of applied water, it should really just be measuring irrigated agriculture, not landscape around like a farm home or anything like that.
Yeah, and that would be very specific, square, drawn out, designated areas.
Mm-hmm. Those are areas that are all visible on a map.
Most of your farming, you can see it visibly in satellite imagery. You can see the footprint of the farming operation. And understand my concern. I mean, there used to be, years ago, we were encouraged to leave habitat areas for pheasants and critters and what have you. And a lot of that area is disappearing anyway, but some of it still exists in ponding basins. Some of it still exists, and that wouldn't be included in the operation of ponding basin, even though it's on the site, correct?
Well, what we're measuring is the irrigated agricultural footprint. So that is most likely not within that.
Yeah.
And I think any kind of
They would draw a line
ecosystem
around it, but sometimes the overflow ponds in some of those irrigated parcels, I've seen them over and over again, particularly like on dairies. You have a lot of overflow ponds, and we're not talking about for cattle, but we're talking about for crops where they try to catch the affluent or the overflow, which they're doing nutrient plans and they have to catch that overflow so that it doesn't get off their premises. So they have these spots. You understand what I'm saying? I probably do. But they have these spots where they catch it. I'm just concerned that would be drawn out of the picture. And I'm stressing this because that could just really mess up your whole premise.
Well, fortunately, a lot of the dairies have been very involved in IRRIWatch early on and making sure we are measuring what we should be measuring, and everything that, as you're describing, that is like a pond for effluent is not irrigated ag, so it's not in the footprint.
Right.
However, if people have issues, the beauty of the resolution is that you can install meters, and
takes that into consideration. Then.
That's right, and then that would also be a way of measuring groundwater.
Right.
I just have a question in regards to how does rainfall, enter into the picture? Like, let's say it's a year like, I guess 2019 was our last good rainfall year, and you have, water. You don't have to pre-irrigate. You've got this water available for first few months, but you still have some evapotranspiration occurring. Is that going to, how is IRRIWatch going to, because no water is being pumped out of the ground and so forth?
That's right. So rainfall is essentially subtracted off the total amount of ET, right? So using a formula for effective precipitation, because not everything that falls from the sky is necessarily meeting the needs of your plant. But it does take into account rainfall. It uses some NOAA data. If anyone is interested in installing a CIMMYS station, which is a California irrigation management system, having more of those in Madera County would be a great thing. Those are part of a statewide network for weather data sharing. But it does take into account rainfall. And so one interesting thing is looking at numbers for ETAW from last year. They are fairly high, but part of that is because it was very dry, right? So they were higher than we would expect than the average for each crop.
Okay, very good. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, you said something that triggered a thought there that it's not meeting the needs of the plant, but.
Hey, okay.
No, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, through the winter time, I don't irrigate at all through the winter, and it meets the needs of all of my plants during parts of the year.
So thank you for asking that. So the satellite data is measuring your transpiration of your plant, right? And your plants transpire in the winter just at a decreased rate.
Right.
For the most part, they're using water that was applied previously and that is stored in the soil. So you don't want to compare satellite data necessarily week to week to pump data, but if you look at a year's worth, you will see a pretty good comparison between meter data and satellite data. So the answer to the question, why is the tree transpiring when I'm not watering, is the tree is using water that's stored in the soil.
Yeah, it's and largely it gets stored there by rainfall. If you don't get that, then you're,
Well, and then it's applied water. Then it's storing what you're applying.
Yeah, I hope there's a parity there with what's happening, because I know I don't pump probably at least 4 months out of the year. I don't pump at all.
Right. The trees, though, are still going to transpire. And so
Right.
you want to look at your total at the end of the year because they're using stored water to get through the water.
Okay, very good. Well, let's move on to, if there's no other questions from colleagues, let's go ahead and move on to public comment. And we will deal with the public comment with folks in the room first, and then we'll go to the web. So if anybody'd like to provide that, go ahead and come on up.
Good morning, Supervisors. Christina Beckstead, Executive Director, Madera County Farm Bureau. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Stephanie, for all the hard work that's gone into this. But a few questions and kind of thoughts that come into mind as I listen to today's discussion. One, I'd be curious to know when the 2022 verification process will go into place. I know that I received, in light of the letters that went out last week, I've received phone calls that I am telling them to call you for. About concerns on the differences or discrepancies in the numbers. And I think that obviously ties into the satellite measurement and some components that haven't been quite addressed yet. I know they've been discussed, but maybe not hammered out. One of them is soil types. In talking to some of these growers, they have some fields that are right on par and measuring correctly with satellite imagery, but then you have other growers that have a different soil type that maybe retains more moisture, and they're not having to irrigate with as much water as typically you would need to irrigate with. So in some instances, and actually most of the instances that I've received phone calls on, the differences are anywhere from 30 to 50% more is what satellite imagery is indicating on that report in comparison to what they've actually applied. So that said, I think atmospheric moisture comes into play with that as well, because when we have fog days or we have very humid days or whatever the situation may be, there's obviously moisture that carries in the air, settles in the soil, and then those soils that have the ability to retain more water are taking that water in. There's also the issue of, it's my understanding that the Ear Watch program does not distinguish between type of crop, or maybe better term would be type of plant material. So if you have an orchard and there are weeds in the rows, it's not going to tell you the difference between the weeds and the canopy on the tree, nor is it going to tell you the difference if there's a cover crop on the ground. I'm not saying that's a fault. I think those are things that have to be taken into consideration and where there may be some issues. I've had at least 2 growers that have called me recently that had fallow fields with essentially probably had some weeds on it, not anything significant, and they were showing a measurement on EraWatch of several inches on land that they had not placed water on. So something that probably needs to be continue to be worked out as far as, and I think that goes to both Supervisor Rogers and Supervisor Poitras's comments or questions. The other thing that comes to mind, question, would be about the meter information that's provided during the appeals process. One, how is the third party selected and who will that third party be? And then another question is, will the information that's being provided in the appeals process become public? Because there are maps being requested with actual locations of wells. As an industry, we have fought very hard at the state level to keep private well information protected for growers for various reasons. And I think that it's important that in this case, if that information is provided to the county, that it does need to remain protected. So something to work through. And then other than that, lastly, and I don't know how big of an issue it is, but the farm show is next week, starting on Tuesday. And if the rate study is going to be discussed that day, I don't know how many farmers will be in town for the rate study discussion because of that. So just something I wanted to add. Thank you.
I had a quick question for Christine.
Yes.
When you talk about soil types and the differences, some of the soil has more gyp then of course you got sandy loam, which has very low clay, and then there's clay type soil that retains water much more expansively than sandy loam. Sandy loam, it just passes through almost with a small retention. So that's what you're referring to when you're saying that, so it rains and the gyp soil or the clay soil is going to retain the water in that area a lot longer than your sandy loam, where it's going to pass through. You might get some benefit to the plant for a while from that rain, but long term, much longer term, you're going to get a benefit on the clay and the gyp soil, so that the plant's going to evapotranspirate maybe in a greater amount than it would without the water retention. So that's what I'm concerned about is, how do you distinguish when the water's sitting there a lot longer and you're not irrigating, but the water's sitting there longer than it did over here, and it's really tough to distinguish between those two soil types. So that's what I'm getting out of your.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, no different than in Madera County, we have a lot of different microclimates, right? We have a lot of different soil profiles within the county. So in certain areas, and even within the same, couple mile radius, there's various soil types. In speaking with one of my board members, he has 2 blocks that have very different soil profiles. And then he has 1 block that has retained an excess amount, if you will, of water from the prior year's rain, right? So he's not having to apply any water because it's taking the water from the soil, the moisture that's in the soil, or not apply as much. Then the other component of it is that you have, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you another question while you're thinking about that. The advent of hard pan beneath surfaces is it's varying, and that has a direct impact on how much water stays in that particular area that you're talking about. It could be a couple feet under, it could be 6 feet under. It varies on my property between a foot and 6 foot. So you could have areas where the hard pan, even though when you're doing trees, a lot of times they'll rip it and break the hard pan up. There are some crops where you don't have to do that. And so the water retention within the spectrum of the plant's ability to siphon that water may stay longer than it does over here where it's 6 foot deep versus 2 feet deep or whatever. Like for alfalfa, a lot of guys don't rip for alfalfa.
Yeah, that is my basic understanding. By no means am I a soil expert. That's probably way above my
I mean,
head.
that's very scientific. It's very simple, isn't it?
Right.
It's a simple concept. What if you've got a surface that's holding the water closer to the surface of the soil, the top, than you have down here. I mean, same amount of water applied to both of them, but one is going to be able to access it easier than the other. That's all I'm saying. So there could be a discrepancy in how that's perceived from satellite. Satellite's not going to distinguish between the two and the amount of time. These are areas I have concern about in the scientific ascertaining of this circumstance. I really wonder about how you make that distinction. Right, Mr. Agricultural Commissioner? I see him nodding his head back there. It's so true. I mean, there are factors beyond the ability of satellite imagery to see.
Right, and the other thing that finally came to mind was the root system of the plant. So
Right.
some of them have
The depth of the roots.
right, the depth of the root system will play a part in that as well.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Would it be all right for me to respond to some of that?
Sure.
I would appreciate it.
So, big picture, we're in 3 critically overdrafted subbasins, and we need a way of measuring water use, right? And so there's kind of these 2 ways of doing it, meters or satellite imagery. And what your board has done is give people the option to use both. So if they feel like AeroWatch is not accurately working, I would do a couple things. I would make sure you're logging on regularly and know how to use the portal. We did 6 trainings last year. We can continue to do those, but also install some meters and have them read regularly. And then we can have people sign up for our verification program. So that was a key piece in our newsletter that went out last week. We haven't received anyone other than the folks we had last year who's interested, but I would like people to sign up because sharing meter data and comparing it to AeroWatch moves science further. And so if you have issues with soil type, we are pulling from, I think it's an NRCS soil map, and we've also taken individual soil type if you have more detailed information. That is in AeroWatch. I'm not sure about atmospheric moisture. I mean, that's obviously going to decrease the amount of water that's drawn out of the soil, but I would just encourage people to sign up for the verification process. I think that's what we can do. And then keep in mind that we're looking at big picture things. We're looking at a month or a year's worth of data. We're not saying you pumped on these 2 days, so you're seeing a corresponding bump in the transpiration rate of the plant. It's not going to work that way. But it does give us a cost-effective way of getting a number for how much water people are using. And this is the type of technology that's been tested over a 20-year period.
Yeah, I wanted to say I'm not trying to throw a pall over this. I just want it to be fair. I want it to
Absolutely.
be, and I feel like we've built in some safeguards into the system by allowing the appeals and all of that, and the various different methods of measuring. And I think even to the point where there should be a possible visual inspection of something when there's a discrepancy where the farmer could take you out there and say, hey, here's the circumstance, and this is what's happening, and I'm not doing that, so why are we getting that result? And we might find these problems through the years and understand the whole system better. And then everybody begins to feel comfortable as the truth prevails.
Well, I also wanted to talk a little bit about what Ms. Beckstead was referring to. EraWatch it does not care what the crop type is. It doesn't care if it's weeds or a cover crop or an orchard. Really, it's using an algorithm, a surface energy balance to calculate water use. And yes, if you have weeds, they're transpiring and using water. And we wiped everything out, I think, that was under 2 inches. So that appeared to just be weeds. But there are weeds that use more than that, just like there's cover crops that use more than that. And what we're doing is developing an accounting framework for water, and everything counts.
Yeah. Incentive to keep the weeds down, huh?
Very good. Thank you.
Stephanie, I was going to, to that point, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say my bank still measures even my wasteful spending. I don't get to just remove that from what's going out of my bank account, to look at it in that way. So, if the weeds are taking up water, that's something that needs to be addressed so that that water isn't being used.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Looks like we have some more public comments.
Thanks for the answers to the questions. I appreciate it, Stephanie.
Good morning, and thank you. My name is Mark Peters. I'm a property owner for irrigated acreage within the GSA, and we appreciate getting the reports very much. They did come last week, and I will say, so I want to just speak from a very practical standpoint. I did not sign up to look at EraWatch online in 2021, so my first knowledge of what EraWatch was going to report came in the mail at the end of last week. And so we have 6 parcels that exactly match EraWatch that also have flow meters. And what struck me was that in all 6, EraWatch's numbers were significantly higher than the flow meters. There was a range, but they were all double digit. The lowest one was low double digit, the highest one was high double digit, as a percentage above what the flow meters show. And so obviously we have some work to do, and that's, my point is not that there's not work to do. I would have expected, half of the measurements to be below and half to be above, but in this case, EraWatch was all above. And so now I'm coming at this as just getting the data with not all my thoughts complete, if you will. So I would ask everyone to show a little bit of patience for all of us who are seeing EraWatch for the first time and realize that the satellite measurement could be significantly higher, which means that we have to go certify the measurements that we have, take monthly pictures, all of that. But that's not going to happen in one day. That certification will take place the first time we irrigate. The pictures will start, but I won't have them from January 1st. And so there's some technicalities in here that I would just like to raise my hand and say it's not going to be easy. I know what we need to do, but it's not going to be easy.
Thank you for bringing this to our attention. I really appreciate that, because this is my concern. And I know it's yours, that we're going to get overwhelmed with proving these circumstances.
Very good. Thank you. Any other public comments from those in the room? If not, let's go ahead and get some public comments from those on the web. I believe who do we have up?
We have just one from Eagle.
Okay, very good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Igal Trebach with Pegasus Orchards. Thank you, Stephanie, for all the work you're doing. I think you're, measuring up to a very difficult task over here. I've brought these comments up in the past, and that is the weeds in between the rows in an orchard. We do apply weed killers in order to be able to help both pests and the uptake of water. We mow, we use pre-emergent chemicals, but when you're going to look at earwatch, the weeds that do come up, especially after it rains, get counted against us, although we don't necessarily irrigate during the winter. In addition, we have been taken out of farming several sections, and even though you stop irrigating them, they continue, and some areas continue and grow. And I just want to make sure that within the project, those areas will not be counted against our use of water. I think that's my main concern right now. Thank you for listening.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Anybody, again, on the web? We have one more.
One more from Leticia.
Okay. Go ahead, Leticia.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie, for giving that presentation and for the people who shared the stories. I just kind of want to emphasize that thousands of wells continue to go dry. And although I know this is like a really tough process, we just need to act now before the valley runs out of groundwater. And then we have no water to use for growers or for folks. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick response. The Madera County GSA is the only GSA that is prepared right now and has a rate study to fund domestic well mitigation.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out.
And if there's no other public comment, we will thank you for the report and the comments we received. So let's go ahead and move on to the addition to the agenda item. I believe that would be.
Can I say one more word to staff real quick on that last item? Just one quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And this just hit me. Will there come a point at which we can make adjustments to EraWatch when we find that circumstances like Mr. Peters mentioned occur on a regular basis? Will there be a point at which we can make that permanent adjustment after proved over and over and over again?
I think the best thing for people to do is to prepare to be metered and put meters in place and just assume that they're going to use meters if they don't want to use EraWatch. And what you're asking is, could this be a permanent alternative for them? I think we could let the third party determine that if people are taking regular measurements. So we'll work on setting that portal up so that is not as cumbersome as it could be. Okay.
Okay, thank you. We want to make it easy on people, as easy as possible. This is a difficult situation at its best.
That's right.
Yeah.
This is not easy, so we're not trying to make it harder.
And I get that too. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that.
Certainly. As I mentioned, let's go ahead and move on to the Madera County Agreement for Tree Mortality Operations.
Thank you, Chairman. Regina Garza, your County Counsel. Thank you for adding this item to the agenda. Sergeant Wilder and Commander and the Undersheriff and the Sheriff are here to bail me out if I misstate anything and answer any questions that the board might have. This agreement that's before you and available to members of the public, since it was in addition to the agenda, to give you a little background, came before the board on December 14th, 2021, in an effort to keep tree mortality operations and management services going. All the T's weren't crossed and the I's weren't dotted, and we noticed the exhibits were not attached to these agreements. In order to make sure that our contractors are paid and our agreements are complete, we are bringing this back for re-review and ratification and approval of the complete item. And we will also be working with the sheriff's office to look at all the items that were brought to the board on December 14th, and we'll be returning at a later board meeting date with revisions to those. This one is more timely, and we're bringing it before the board because invoices and work have been done, and so we want to make sure we address this prior to looking back and seeing how we can make sure the others are just as fine-tuned. Happy to answer any questions along with those right here.
Very good. Are there any questions?
This for me, Tom.
Yes.
Supervisor Rob. This is so important for getting those jobs done up there. Like I said, I went to North Fork and back yesterday. I seen that they've already cleaned some up and they got a lot of trees already marked, ready to do it. And we gotta keep this process moving. We can't hinder it at all. So when you're ready, I'll make a motion to approve this.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any members of the public that have any comments? Hearing and seeing none, let's bring it back for action.
Move to approve.
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Wheeler,
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers,
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier,
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes.
Chairman Poitras.
Yes.
Bill passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank you. Excellent. Let's go to 6B. This is will be acting actually as the Board of Directors of the Public Finance Authority. This would be a discussion and consideration to adopt resolution approving documents and actions relating to the execution and delivery of public lease, a property lease to finance Madera County Fire Station number 3. Other improvements.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Joel Bouquet, County Administrative Office. Item 6B and 6C are related. 6B, you're acting as the Board of Directors of Public Finance Authority. I kind of want to point out before I go to specifics of the resolution that we will be bringing revised page 4 to add Director Poitras as an authorized officer to sign on behalf of the Board of Directors. With the chairman not being present, we need to make sure that your name is added so you could sign the documents after the meeting. And we will provide copies in the back, load revised pages of the agreement and the resolution and the signature pages of the agreement online once we have those updated. So I kind of want to point out.
When we make the motion, can we add his name to that? We could do that? Thank you.
So we are seeking the Public Finance Authority to authorize issuance of up to $7 million in leaseback funding with an annual interest rate not to exceed 2.28%. The net proceeds will be used to fund 2 major public safety infrastructure projects, one being construction of Fire Station 3, and the other is the construction of a smoke control system at the jail. I want to note, though, that in Fire Station 3, this only provides a portion of the funding. Last week, your board authorized ARPA funding to fund the rest of the construction for Fire Station 3. That's why the amount of $7 million is less than the sum of these 2 projects. So we want to make sure we point that out. We also want to point out that in order to avoid up to $150,000 of construction interest, because Fire Station 3 is non-existent, and to lease finance something, you need to have a facility, we are temporarily putting up the old government center, which is 209 West Yosemite, as temporary collateral. There are provisions in the lease agreement that once the fire station is up, that it will fall off after paying the first 5% of principal payments, which would be in October. We wanted to make sure we point that out as the board has adopted a resolution agreeing to work with the Arts Council for the land to be used for a future performing arts facility where the 209 West Yosemite currently sits on. We want to point out that this does not interfere with any of that intent. This is just so that it's temporary, that we don't incur $150,000 more of capitalized interest, and it will automatically fall off once we reach October 2022 when we make our first payment for the financing. And with that, we're available for any questions.
Very good. First of all, I'm surprised that they'd want 209 West Yosemite for collateral. That's interesting.
Yeah, it
Anyway,
is.
yeah, it's almost like, we should pay them to take it, but.
Are we going to go somewhere? Or what? Rob and I are going to go off to Bahamas with the money, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
No.
Rob, hopefully they're not listening to this right now. Our collateral just went away.
Yeah. They can take all the goodies with it. Go ahead, Supervisor Frazier, anything else? No. Okay. Any other comments from my colleagues? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any comments? If not, roll call vote, please.
Well, I don't think we made a motion yet.
Oh, nobody's made a motion.
Yeah,
Okay.
I move that
Okay,
we
there
approve
you go.
the documents and actions related to the execution of delivery of the property to lease and finance County of Madera Fire Station number 3. That we add Rob Poitras, acting chairman, to the signers list and enabling him to sign on behalf of the County of Madera.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Thank you. Yes, thank
Vote
you.
passes 5-0.
So that was 6B. We'll move on to 6C, and this would be actually taking action as the county. And
Yes, Mr. Chairman, it's an identical item, it's an identical resolution. We want to just point out, though, in the list of authorized officers, we don't need to make modification. There is a broader substitute, alternates available. So it stays as is.
okay, very good. Any comments from my colleagues? Any comments from the members of the public? If not, I'll accept the motion for
To
action.
approve item 6C.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second and a third. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you, Supervisors.
Thank you. Let's move on to 6D. This is a discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with Marco Construction in the amount of $3,583,000 for construction of Fire Station number 3 and authorize chairman to sign.
Hello, Chairman and members of the board. Amber Mojica here with General Services, and I'm with Maritza Rodriguez with Capital Projects Manager. We have a presentation for the agreement to go with Marco Construction for Fire Station number 3.
I only heard part of that. I don't know what it
Oh,
was
I'm
breaking
sorry.
up.
You could take your mask off just for, that way it's not as muffled.
Yes. Okay. Just here for to get into an agreement with Marco Construction for the construction of Fire Station number 3. We have a presentation, but we're having some technical difficulties. Oh.
Were they the low bidders?
Yes, and we'll go over that right now in a second.
Okay.
So I'm going to go over a quick background, and then I'm going to pass it on to Maritza. So in November of 2019, your board approved a purchase donation to acquire a 2-acre site on the corner of Road 26 and Avenue 21 in Madera for a new Fire Station number 3 location. And then in July of 2020, your board approved an agreement with RRM Design Group for design and engineering services for Fire Station number 3.
So on October 22nd, 2021, we received received 7 bids. That was a very good turnout of contractors that were interested in the project. These are the bids here from lowest to highest. The lowest bidder was Marco Construction for $6,583,000. And the highest bidder at $7.8 million. The average bid was $7.3 million. Marco Construction was the lowest responsible bidder, and we are recommending today that your board approve the construction agreement with Marco Construction. If you approve the contract with Marco Construction today, we are anticipating a year of construction starting this month and completion of early next year, 2023, with occupancy sometime in March 2023. This is a description of the scope of work that's included in their contract. Fire Station 3 is approximately 7,985 square feet. Of those, approximately 3,300 square feet are for the apparatus bay, and the 46 and some change for the rest of the living area, firefighters' living quarters, and the administration side. I have a floor plan to show you and some of the other slides. In addition to the scope of work that is listed here, because this is an undeveloped site, we will have to bring in all the utilities, not just power and communication, but also the wet utilities. We'll have our own self-contained water well system and a sewer system. In addition to that, we did have to make provisions for the agreement that your board approved back in November 2019 with Pacific Orchards. In that agreement, the county allowed joint use of on-site utilities, including the water well, the fire suppression storage, the wastewater septic, and the storm retention. So we did have to upsize to accommodate for the future development of that. I believe it's going to be a gas station or convenience store at that location for the donation of land. All right, and this is the site plan. Just to go over a few things in here, we have the future seepage for the commercial development here. This is our Fire Station 3 seepage location. We do have the fire water tank located here, and then the domestic water at this location, and the water well located at this site as well. The water well and site wet utilities total cost is $1.3 million by itself. A lot of it, or part of this was, again, like I mentioned, caused due to the improvements that needed to be upsized for the future development. This is the floor plan of the fire station. One of the new design concepts that the new fire stations consist of is they have a decontamination area. In this area that I'm circling here in the presentation, this is their decontamination area to address removal of carcinogens from personnel or from firefighters after a fire. This reduces the chance of them getting any carcinogen or cancer. This is fairly new development that new fire stations are going towards, and I believe that we don't have this in all the fire stations, but this is one of the areas that we focus on, just not just for the health of the firefighters. You see the apparatus bay here in the center that separates the dirty area from their living quarters. We do have 3 bunk rooms located over on this side with 2 restrooms. We have an exercise room, a day room, an open concept day room with the dining room, and then the kitchen. We have a conference room, a conference office, and then we have a treatment room, public restroom, and a lobby located in here. So it's fairly compact, but it does address, it is an open area concept so that it flows with it in separation for the COVID-related requirements. And this is the rendering of the Fire Station 3. As you can see, this is the living quarters, and then this is the apparatus bay. And with that, I will open it up for any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you to staff. To get us to this point is very exciting. I'm so excited. I can't wait to post the pictures of page 4 and the rendering on page 8 on my Facebook to let the residents of the county know that this is on its way. And this, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but this is going to serve some 20,000 plus residents. I know 10,000 at least in the Acres Country Club area, and then you've got Madeira Lakes, which will also serve out that way, and then towards Chowchilla. And you tell us what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's correct, Supervisor. It is located in this thing kind of strategically that can, kind of cover that Kinsman area to Madeira Lakes, to Madeira Acres and Country Club area. It's kind of strategic in that spot. That way we can get a quick roll-in response and get back out to Highway 99 still, and it'll shorten our response time to Fairmead. We're not close enough to provide direct protection of Fairmead or the Chowchilla area, but at least it gets that engine a few minutes closer to serve that area.
Right. Thank you for your work on this, Matt. I appreciate it so very much. And this is important to the community, as you know, and we've been working on it a long time. Really happy to see this come.
Yeah, so are we. This is a huge improvement to the 35-plus-year-old mobile home that was condemned about 6 years ago. So I'm glad to see this project moving forward.
Yeah, wheels turn slowly, but they get there eventually, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? If not, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any public comments regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll bring this item back to the board for action.
I want to move to approve item 6D with great glee.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Greatly appreciated.
Certainly.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Matt.
We'll move on to 6E. This is discussion and consideration of entering into an agreement with Strategic Mechanical in the amount of $2,361,000 for construction of Madera County fire alarm and smoke control system.
Hello, Amber Mojica with General Services. I have Maritza Rodriguez, Capital Projects Manager, and Raymond Huerta, Facility Superintendent. Today we're here to discuss and going into an agreement with Strategic Mechanical in the amount of $2,361,000 for the construction of the Madera County Fire Alarm and Smoke Control System. And so, a little bit of background. On February 7, 2017, your board approved a contract for design services for the jail HVAC project with Kitchell CEM. And then in December of 2017, your board approved a contract for construction services for a jail HVAC project with Strategic Mechanical. However, during the upgrade construction, the state fire marshal indicated that the existing fire control system was not fully operational, and the state fire marshal required the system to be updated to meet current code. So on November 20th, 2018, your board approved a contract amendment with Kitchell CEM to include the design of the jail fire alarm smoke control system upgrades. On February 28, 2020, the state fire marshal approved the design for the fire alarm smoke control system upgrades.
So basically, this is a continuation of the extension project of the jail HVAC upgrades that we did at the time. It took over a year to get approval from the state fire marshal for the design. So in the meantime, Strategic Mechanical completed the HVAC upgrades at the jail. Unfortunately, some of the savings that we could have realized at the time of the HVAC improvements, we couldn't realize because the state fire marshal took over a year to approve the drawings, the design. And on October 21st, 2021, we did receive one bid from Strategic Mechanical for $2,661,000. We did some extensive outreach to contractors. However, this is a very specialized system, and there are some market trend conditions that inflated the cost of the project, increase in materials for 30%, and supply chain disruptions. Some of the things that we have to take into considerations in the operations that Raymond is going to discuss here is the very specialized systems and the standards that we have throughout the county, and why we think that going with a Strategic Mechanical won't change the bid. So I'm going to have Raymond talk and discuss.
Well, Raymond Huerta with General Services. Strategic Mechanical is the original contractor for the HVAC project, and they're very familiar with the systems right now. And they brought on Johnson's Control, who manages the Simplex fire system, and then Allerton, LNH, Airco are the ones that manage the Allerton system. The Allerton system is the standard for the county facilities, the energy management system for any new projects or any projects we have. So to bring other contractors to try to tie into the system, they still have to communicate with the existing systems that are in place. And in the past, we've had problems when we bring another system in there. When we opened up the central plant in 2012, we had two different types of systems in there, and we had nothing but problems. And we decided to go with the Allerton, which LNH manages. That's why we want to stick with the same systems that we have.
So we recommend approval of construction agreement with Strategic Mechanical because of those reasons. We also did verify that the bids were consistent with the estimate. We had the Sierra West estimating, make sure that the bid aligned with the current market conditions, and they confirmed that that was the case. So we recommend the approval of this contract with Strategic Mechanical. If your board approves today, we will proceed with construction, and we expect completion late this year, October 2022. These are some of the upgrades that we're doing, upgrading the ULK listed controllers, the interface relays, modifying the existing fire alarm control panel to add the firefighter smoke control panel and provide fire smoke control panel and smoke control panel sequence of operations to, this is all the old part of the jail built housing units A, B, C, D, E, K. This does not include the currently functioning housing unit that was built with the AB 900 project that has its own functioning smoke control system that has been working. This is all the old part of the jail that we didn't address at the time. And so we will upgrade the new control system, BAS control system with UULK listed smoke control services or devices. This is the site plan. As you can see, this is the new housing unit LNH that was built not too long ago. Again, this has its own functioning smoke control system, so this will only apply to housing unit A and B, C and D, and E through K, and then as well as the corridors. Again, the smoke control system is only required for areas where inmates are housed 24/7, where they're living. It doesn't include any administration areas or the kitchen where inmates are not there living. So this is just for the housing units. And with that, I have Chris Rodriguez here from the jail if he wants to speak to the operations.
Just real quick, the smoke control system is also just essential to
the safety and security of our inmate population and our staff. And so getting that system up to par in case we had a fire is something it's a need that needs to be taken care of. And we'd greatly appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
We have a
Third.
motion, second, third. Are there any comments from my colleagues?
I was just going to say, we don't have any choice. This is a liability issue, and we need to do this.
Yeah.
So we don't have any choice.
Are there any members of the public that have any comments? If not, we'll bring it up here. And I just want to give a shout out to the state fire marshal for their efficient and effective response to the review of the plans, and so that we could pay more money for this. It's just another example of an ineffective and
bureaucratic.
Yeah, and actually in a lot of areas, incompetent state government. So with that editorial comment, roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Right, thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you very
continued
much.
support.
Let's move on to 6F. This is discussion and direction to staff regarding the process for candidate consideration and appointment to fill the upcoming auditor controller vacancy.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Elba Gomez with Human Resources. So yes, we have another resignation from your auditor controller, Todd Miller, who I believe is here. But this item is similar to the one that we had last month where your assessor also submitted a resignation. So we're here to ask for direction from the board and possibly bring another item. Regina and myself are available to ask any questions. I believe Todd is ready to also come up here and speak up, but we're just here to present this item to you today. Thank you.
Good morning, supervisors. Todd Miller,
Good morning.
Auditor Controller.
Good afternoon, actually. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was hoping to make it after lunch, push this off as long as we could. I'd like to make some comments and thank some people and take a few minutes to do some acknowledgements, if you don't mind. As I pass through my 70th year, it's time to make one of those life-changing decisions. 10 years ago, I was contacted by some guy named Tom Wheeler, about 11 years ago. And he said, we're having a problem at the county. Would you come help? And I said, no. And a few months later, he called me again and asked if I would, once again, if I would. We talked about it a little bit. And I said, well, okay, I'll do that. Well, the county, in its wisdom, selected a different candidate to handle the issues at the time. And so a few years later, I was convinced by certain people to run for election. And the people of Madera County decided to send me here to do my thing. And I did. Now, 8 years later, I feel I've fulfilled the mandate that Tom Wheeler gave me, which was to come clean up the Auditor Controller Department, make it work. I think I've done that. So it's time to let somebody new ideas take over. So with that, I intend to retire at the end of February. In my letter, I've recommended that you appoint David Ridgestone as to finish out my term. He is a CPA. He is a certified internal auditor. He comes with over 20 years of experience in this kind of work. I think he meets all the criteria to do a good job at succeeding me. So there's a few people I would like to acknowledge positively and not negatively. First of all, Tracy Kennedy and Becky Martinez. Sometimes a pain to the board, but a big help to me. And without them, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. Yeah, quite honestly, they were part of the impetus to get me to run and helped me be successful in that run. I'd like to mention my assistants. I've been a little tough on my assistants. In 8 years, I'm on my 4th. And they are the master sergeant of my department. They work very, very hard, and I put a lot of pressure on them. Specifically, I'd like to mention Michael Denny, who I'm sure you all remember. His experience and longevity in government work was just a tremendous help to me. Eileen Christensen, who succeeded him, tremendous help. I can't speak highly enough of her. Both of them had decided to retire. They were towards the end of their career and they went. My current assistant is Elizabeth Cruz. Boy, did I luck out there. It was almost seamless. As one left, she came in, and she has done a wonderful job. I support her wholeheartedly. Somebody I'd like to mention is Gary Savanda. Great guy.
Oh, yeah.
Great campaign, just an overall great guy. He was my mentor. When I would get frustrated with county bureaucracy, he's the one I'd go whine to, and he would put me straight. I'd like to recognize some people from my department. First off, my Vang. When I first came here, I had ideas, I had visions, and I'd call her into my office and go, I want to do this. Maya's the one who made it happen. She was the implementer. She saw my vision and took it and put it into reality. She has been with me since I got here, and I hope she's here a lot longer. Catherine Nanoa. To be honest with you, I don't know what the hell she does, but she does it very well. She's in charge of the property tax division. We never have any problems. If I go to Catherine or my assistant goes to Catherine and says, could you help with this problem, totally unrelated, she never says no. And by God, it's done. I would like to mention Jim Boyajian, who you all know. He has been acting auditor controller. He's assistant auditor controller. He's another one of those old guys. His history with the county has really helped us. There are times when I go, where did this come from? And this guy would go dig in the bottom of some file cabinet somewhere and come up with the answer. Also, I have to give him credit. For the past 4 years, we've received the transaction award from the state controller's office, and Jim was the one I tasked with doing that. And over some protestation, he's got it done, and we hopefully will never not get it. I'd like to mention Elaine Coe. This board, I came to you when I had the opportunity to hire her, and you let me do it. It was really not budgeted. It really didn't have a slot, but I convinced you of the benefit of having her. Elaine and her team is the reason for the past 4 years and soon to be 5th year, we've received the Government Finance Officers Award, which is a high honor for any county or any government agency to get due to the quality and completeness of our financial statements that we provide to everybody. And finally, I want to recognize Lisa Burnthorne. You guys ever get a paycheck late? No. The reason? Lisa. Okay? Sometimes she can be a little grumpy, but that's okay. She has a stressful position. It's probably the only job in the county. She cannot take off the last week of any month. She has to be here, no matter what. And you know what? She is.
Yeah, but you get grumpy too.
Huh? I'm
I
grumpy.
said, yeah, but you get grumpy too.
Shut up, Tom. Jay Varney, great guy. We campaigned at the same time. We came into office together. What a great pick for CAO. Always willing to listen, always willing to help and suggest. Regina Garza has, when I've had some issues, some legal things come up or legal questions, no hesitation, I don't have to wait around. It's not stuck in bureaucracy land somewhere. She takes care of business. You, the Board of Supervisors, without you, I couldn't have done what I did. You provided me the resources. You allowed me to do my job. Didn't get in the way, didn't say no. Thank thanks to you, that was a big part of our success. And finally, as all the men know, you have to thank your wife. My wife of 45 years, Sandy, she's the one that pushes me out the door every morning, so I actually go do something. So when I told her I was going to retire, my plan was to get a rocking chair and take up whittling. She had other ideas. Evidently, I am her full-time handyman, and she has projects that will last at least the next 5 years. So with that, I plan to finish out my term or finish out the month. We are doing some transition things, and it's been great. Best job I ever had. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Todd. And
Chairman, can I speak first? Because I think I'm going to lose connection here pretty soon. But I just wanted to thank Todd for his diligence. I like that he was sometimes a pain to the board. That's what checks and balances are for. You're never a pain to me personally, Todd. I always respected you greatly and appreciate your hard work as well as your friendship. So enjoy retirement. It's well deserved.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, I want to say thank you, Todd. You grew on me, and that's saying something right there. But no, you really you did a job for us that needed to be done for so long. Thank you for getting us there and keeping us there. It's very difficult to write checks when you don't know where the money's coming from or where it's going, and that's not good.
No.
And we have it all in its place now, and thanks to you and your team, and we give a lot of credit where credit is due. I hope you have a great retirement, enjoy yourself, and keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments?
Yes.
Supervisor
If you guys
Wheeler.
are done. Yeah. First of all, when I first wanted to talk to Todd,
Would you cut him off?
Supervisor, we can't hear you.
I had it on mute, darn it. First of all, I just wanted to thank Todd for all his service, and I just wanted a little explanation why I went after him, but to see if he might run for this, because we've been through 3 or 4 or 5 auditors, and only one of them to last was a CPA. We decided finally that we pushed like mad to change the rules, that the auditor had to be a CPA, and that was one of our biggest problems before. And I used to talk to Todd at Rotary. We're both in the noon Rotary up here, and I'd ask him, what the heck? Why can't we do this kind of stuff? And he says, well, you can do it if you do it right, and if you have a CPA and all that. So we did change that, and I did bug the heck out of him to run, and I'm so happy he did, because it's that first year, I think whatever it's March 1st or March 31st, whatever that date is, he come and announced at our board meeting that he had the audit done the first time in over 20 years. And all I could do is say hallelujah. And he's done a heck of a job, and he don't mind calling and yelling at me, and I don't mind calling and yelling at him, because we get things done. And he's like me. We get that certain time in our lives that it's time to move on. And I feel that he is finally, he's talked about this a couple of times, but he said he had to find the right person he thought would, keep on what he's been doing, just like I have when I decided to retire. And so I want to move, and it's just discussion direction. I want to direct staff, if you guys will go along with me, to move forward with this, accept it, and do like we did for Gary Savanda. See if we can appoint David Rigstone to this position to finish out the year, and hopefully he'll run for that position. His timing is right, because now he can, if he decides to, he can go ahead and sign up. And again, thank you, Todd.
Second the motion.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for being my friend.
Absolutely.
Very good. Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll keep it short and sweet. I want to thank Todd for all of your years of service. I didn't have a long time to serve with you on the board, being the newest board member, but I appreciate everything you've done. And as a staffer, it was always pleasant working with the members of your department. So thank you very much. And I would like to see the most minimal disruption. I know there is a looming election coming up, and so we'll see who comes up, but I'd like to see the most minimal disruption within the department to keep it functioning.
Thank you very much.
Very good. And I'd just like to say, Todd, thank you so much for not only your work, but the team you established. And I really appreciate how you recognized, your team and what everybody contributes, because it really is. I mean, there's one thing about, leading, but there's also, the people who have the expertise to make things happen. And, that's really, thank you so much, everybody, for filling those roles and those important responsibilities and making it happen. And we're looking forward to the future as we keep moving forward. So thank you so much. Are there any members of the public that have anything they'd like to say? I believe we have somebody in the web world.
10A. They wanted to speak on 10A.
Oh, they want to speak on 10A. Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. So is there anybody here in-house?
Jim Boyadjian, Assistant Auditor Controller, retired. We have an excellent current assistant, so I need to emphasize the retired part. But I just want to say that I really appreciate all that Todd's done for us, but I'll tell a little story about my first day meeting Todd, which was very interesting because I had written two letters to the editor against Todd. And so I'm walking, I'm in his office on the first day, and he looks at me and doesn't know who I am. And the assistant then, the current assistant, announced who I was, and Todd looked at me, and I think his face, I think it went red at first, but then he broke out into laughter, which broke all the tension, and it told me, okay, I think I made a mistake. And of course, I'm willing to admit my mistakes. They're many, and this was a big one. But I wrote those letters not because I was enamored with who we had, his opponent, but because I just didn't know Todd. And I should have made an effort to get to know him, and I have known him now for this, over 3 years, and 8 years, right? 2 terms, right? 2 terms, right? I'm old, so.
Yeah.
But
and you're a historian. Do you?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I'm a historian, the county historian. But I just want to again thank him for all he's done for the department, because that's been the main reason I've hung around, is to try and see that we have a department that does the job that the county needs and the taxpayers need. But I will miss those moments because we usually spar a bit over those letters. He loves to bring it up at certain times, and I like to bring it up and zing him too, right?
Oh, boy.
But I'll miss that too. Okay, we will miss you, Todd.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Jim. And Supervisor.
Can I say something to Jim?
Yes, and then Supervisor Gonzalez.
Yeah, Jim, I wanted to thank you. You've always, you've come to me many times about our auditors over the past, and and every time I see you in the hallways, I always say, I thought you retired, and, Jim's got so much history, and I think he was probably Todd's right-hand man for all these 7+ years, and he's one of them that helped get us where we are today in that auditor's office. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. I really
Todd.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, when the sheriff became the CAO, the board appointed the undersheriff. When the assessor resigned, the board appointed the assistant assessor. And in this case, we have an assistant auditor. Is there a desire, or why was I just like to put that out for the record for the public's right to know.
Okay, so I think at this point, we need to talk to the employee. As we mentioned with the current interim assessor, is that they're an employee, and that comes with implications of an appointment. So Brian Glover was not appointed. He was, he's getting supplemental pay, right? Because if he left his position, there can be implications of that. So the same thing has to happen with this. We need to discuss what those impacts would be to David. I don't believe there has been a discussion with the assistant, but I believe Todd is here to answer that question.
My assistant would have been a great pick, but she doesn't qualify. She doesn't live in the county.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
I just wanted to put it out on the record because
Yes.
because it's not the exactly the same process. So there were good questions about that.
Yeah, David seems to have, with his longevity of experience, his certificates, and the work he's done for me since he came on board, I feel confident in my recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Regina Garza, your county counsel. I want to clarify a few things that are in the board letter, just to make sure they're clear. So Auditor Controller Miller is correct in terms of qualifications. You'll see on page 526, and under the law, if you're going to be appointed or be elected to this position, you must be a registered voter qualified to vote where the position is, along with holding A through D, one of those. So if the direction to the board is to bring back a resolution to appoint someone, then most certainly someone needs to be qualified. And that means they have to live in Madera County and be registered to vote. However, there's also the option that you directed us to do when it comes to acting, as in the Mr. Glover's option. He is acting because he has no intention that, I believe this was shared, to run, and so he doesn't need to be qualified or meet. He can act because he's a second, and there's a government code section in the board letter that says these certain positions can act or take over if a position is vacated. So those are two separate things that the board has the option of doing. There's an AG opinion also that says you can't not appoint for forever. You have to do it within a reasonable amount of time. So for example, if we go back and we talk about the sheriff, that was about 2.5 years till that term ended. And so the recommendation was you must appoint, because that's a long time. Here, you're looking at about a vacancy of about 10 months. What is a reasonable amount of time with the assessor? We built in a check-in in 6 months in June because we didn't want to run you into what could be not a reasonable amount of time. So just some clarification. Appoint and being qualified, definitely true. Acting is a bit different. You don't have to be a registered voter to act as an auditor or controller for a reasonable amount of time. Is that clear a little bit?
Okay.
Thank you.
But it sounds like in this case, discussion is going to have to take place with the employee.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, and you have direction, I believe?
Yes, we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think it's important that they be a registered voter of Madera County. This is the people's business, and we can say what we want to about individuals' positions, but the position of the people on this is they want somebody they have control over, and that's what gives them control, is that they belong to this county. They work for this county, and they're registered to vote in this county, and they have a ownership of what goes on in this county. So that's important. You know, in that regard, to me, it's important, and I think the voters would see it that way too. So I appreciated Todd's suggestion, and I understand it. I think that's where you were coming from when you said that. Regardless of what the allowances are,
Right.
I think that's an important component. Thank you.
Definitely options, and I think the direction to us is to prepare a resolution to appoint after discussion with the employee, and we can bring that back at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to 6G, this is a discussion and authorization regarding use of one-time mitigation settlement funds received from the California High-Speed Rail Authority for capital project cash flow.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Jared Carter of Madera County Public Works. Yes, this item before you is for discussion and authorization to utilize the one-time funds that we received through a settlement, a negotiation agreement with California High-Speed Rail. If you recall, we've had quite an impact on our road system from the projects that are happening. And so there was a settlement for a dollar amount to help mitigate those impacts. We're currently still a few years away from them finishing all that work. And so in light of the fact that we have several other projects that are in the queue to get done, and looking how we can cash flow those projects, many of them being reimbursement funded projects, we felt like it'd be a good opportunity to take advantage of this funding and utilize it in that way. So, so we're here seeking direction authorization to do so. I would point out that any project we do move forward with to utilize these funds, we would bring that back to the board to report to you prior to moving forward with that. So I'm available for any questions.
Okay. Any questions of Jared?
Yeah, so I thought this is a great way to handle this money so that it's not just a one-time use it and then it's gone, but actually using it as a revolver that could, you know, really turn this over, you know, 100 times over the life and turn that $7 million into, you know, 40 million. So I'm glad that this is brought forward, and I'll move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Supervisor Rogers.
Yeah, I just think Brett just codified exactly what I was going to say. It makes total sense to have money in reserve to utilize as a revolving fund like that, and I think it's a great way to get the biggest bang out of that $6 million. And thank you.
Are there any members of the public that have any comments? Seeing and hearing none, we have a motion and a second, and roll call vote, please.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez? Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Excellent. And we've got some applications out there for ATP, right? Excellent. Thank you. All right. So pending legislation doesn't look like.
The only thing we have pending in that area is actually your item 10A.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to item 10A. And
10A is a request for a letter of support. I believe we have Will Oliver or another representative of the Fresno County EDC online to help explain to you why they would like our support on this item.
okay, very good. Why don't we go to Mr. Oliver at this time?
Great, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the Madera County Board of Supervisors. Will Oliver, Vice President of Business Services with the Fresno County Economic Development Corporation. We're here today to request a letter of support for a 4-county Good Jobs Challenge grant that we are leading and will be submitting here in the next 10 days. Just with some background, through the American Rescue Plan, the Good Jobs Challenge was created to get Americans back to work by building and strengthening systems and partnerships that bring together both employers who have hiring needs as well as other key entities who are there to train workers with in-demand skills that lead to good paying jobs. So these systems and partnerships are geared to create and implement industry-led training programs to connect unemployed or underemployed workers to existing or emerging job opportunities, and ultimately help people get into a good quality job that provides good pay, benefits, and growth opportunities. So our Built for Scale proposal unites 20 plus organizations in Madera, Fresno, Kings, Tulare counties to train over 2,500 people for high quality jobs through demand focused programming with community and place-based recruitment and wraparound services. So the letter before you outlines a dynamic multi-county and multi-sector strategy involving 4 core components, and the sectors too that we have identified includes business services, construction, manufacturing, and transportation. So our plan is to do that, to work very collaboratively with community organizations on the ground, such as the Madera County Workforce Development Board, who has been a really incredible ally in the development of this grant application, to work alongside community benefit organizations like Madera Community Action Partnership or others who provide services and engage often with prospective job seekers in communities in need. So our proposal is going to be upwards of $25 million to make those strategic investments in new programs that are designed by and for employers that work at the speed of business, to make investments in existing best-in-class programs in our communities, while also carrying out that community-informed place-based recruitment and case management. So that is, in general, an overview of our grant application. The deadline is February 10th. And I just want to add that, again, your Workforce Development Board, your EDC with Bobby Kahn, Chamber of Commerce, many people have stepped forward to provide very meaningful contributions. And thank you, Melissa De Silva, for arranging this time on your agenda. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Are there any questions of Will?
No, just move to approve this. I mean, this is another great partnership that with someone that we know cares about Madera County greatly, and you know, this is money that we wouldn't be able to get on our own, and to be able to piggyback on all of their hard work is really going to do a lot of good for Madera County residents and job seekers. So move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any members of the public that have any comments regarding this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Supervisor Frazier?
Yes.
Supervisor Wheeler?
Yes.
Supervisor Rogers?
Yes.
Supervisor Gonzalez?
Yes.
Chairman Poitras?
Yes.
Vote passes 5-0.
Thanks, Will. Still slugging for Madera County.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Good to see you.
And Will, I think I speak for the board that pass along our congratulations to Leanne for her appointment as chairman of the California Transportation Commission.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Will do.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move on to staff reports, and let's go ahead and start with Chairman Wheeler.
And thank you. I just wanted to thank all of you for putting up with my absence and still kind of participate and not raise too much heck. I won't be here next week, so guys, I'll be thinking about you, and I hope Brett runs a good meeting. He hasn't done it for a couple of years, so I think he will. And I know you guys are supporting him like mad, and so I'm looking forward to seeing. Hopefully, I might be able to listen. I don't know. See what happens that day. Thank you.
Well, we'll be thinking and praying for you as well. So there you go. All right.
Yeah, just rest, Tom. We'll take care of it.
Please.
Okay.
Supervisor Frazier.
I have nothing to report, and hopefully, I've still been to meetings, so even though it's been 2 years since I ran one, hopefully I'll be able to do it.
There you go.
All right.
Perfect. Supervisor
Take care,
Rogers.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a good trip.
Yeah, thank you. And be careful, Tom. Just take care of yourself. Appreciate you.
Thank all of you.
You bet. I have a couple of things to report. I spent the day yesterday traveling the roads around the sloughs. I've been doing my own investigations on homeless camps and passing that along to the sheriff's department and the code enforcement, just passing them on the locations of these places. And we've been able to eradicate quite a few. Some of these individuals have come from Merced County, I believe largely due to the fact that they made a big push along the railroad tracks over there near 16 and G and those different locations over there. And they've pushed some of them inadvertently into Madera County, and we're going to push them back out. The problem is getting bigger, and I'm not willing to sit around and let it fester. So I really want to thank Sheriff Pogue and the code enforcement officer, Brandon. I don't have his last name, or
Medellin.
Medellin, yeah. Very good, very cooperative, very engaged. And this is a dangerous job, folks. I can't emphasize how seriously dangerous it is going out there and talking to these people, because they're hostile. And some of them are very hostile, and some of them are very mentally ill. I learned yesterday 71% of runaways, throwaways, and abducted teens are on some form of substance abuse, and that 64% of your homeless are addicted to either alcohol or some form of chemical, and that's a huge percentage. So it's a serious issue, and I really appreciate them addressing it, working with the city of Chowchilla and CWD. I want to mention Brandon Tomlinson, who's been very cooperative, and we took out 15 dump truck loads of trash out of the slough on one camp. 15 dump truck loads. That's a lot of trash. Anyway, I also want to just mention that I'll be engaging with the RHA real soon. This next week on our regular meetings, we're going to actually start meeting in person. But in conjunction with the Regional Health Authority, I want to mention AB 1400, which was defeated yesterday in committee. It died. AB 1400 would have ended your private health insurance as you know it. It would have been the end of private health insurance. This is an area of that the government needs to have no control over, and obviously they don't understand health or the tenets of it, and I don't want the government deciding my health. I know you don't either. So anyway, thank you for listening to my report.
Supervisor Gonzalez.
Just real quick, there's a Black History Month celebration this Sunday at McNally Park at 3 p.m. And Second Missionary Baptist Church will be recognized along with Miss Alma Riggins, who celebrates 104 years here in Madera. So anyone's welcome to join McNally Park 3 p.m. Sunday.
Okay, very good. Mr. Varney.
Just to piggyback what Supervisor Rogers said, keep in mind that AB 1400, I believe, is a 2-year bill. So
right.
It's
not completely
Just
done.
be vigilant on how and when it comes back. That's all for my report, Chairman.
Thank you. Council.
No report. Thank you, Chair.
Clerk of the Board.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right, very good. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Have a great rest of the day.
Good job. Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, Tom.